Off it, everybody, and welcome back to Weekend Edition and our D16 edition of Rehash. Over the next several weeks, up until the general election, we will be rehashing some of the big political events that occurred in the past weekend. Joining us in studio to talk about D16, our analysts Shawn Gumataotao and McNinch. Thank you guys for joining us. 7 days or so past the primary election. We're still waiting for the certification of results. There was some interesting results. A lot of newcomers did very well, and some incumbents not so much. So what are your reaction to the results? Is it what you were expecting?
I thought there'd be some definite movement because of the pay raises, mainly because it sweetened the pot. It made the jobs more lucrative, and people want to go for it now. It has nothing to do with the reaction to the pay raises directly. It's more, hey, it's a better job now, and you get a lot of good people, and all these legacy candidates ran, and the legacy candidates are the reasons, or have family reasons that support them.
Yeah, I mean, from my perspective, I think it's a midterm, and so some of the same things that we've seen behavior-wise from the electorate happened again this past weekend. I would tell you that the surprise of the weekend for me was Therese Terlahi. Absolutely really shocked me in a sense, but also didn't, because from my understanding, she's been very, very active in the Democratic Party for the last decade plus, of course, and so it was not a surprise. On the Republican side, I think all 15 are going to have to reassess their game plan into the general, or they're facing, the entire party's facing a supermajority for the Democrats.
What about the Democrats? Some of the incumbents didn't do so well either. And why do you think that? I
mean, for me, I think that the Rorys, the Tina Barnes, they got to be a tad bit concerned with what they saw and be a little bit disappointed, including Speaker Wampak. I think there's no question that with a couple months to go, whatever has caused a rift and whoever caused this kind of a backlash, and some of it could have had to do with the mayoral races that had Democrats. They're going to have to figure something out, and they're going to have to get back in the good graces, or else they might be looking for a job in November.
But again, this is just the primary.
That's my take too.
It's just the primary results, and so going into the general, you might see some of the Democrats pick up some of the Republican votes, and vice versa.
I just look at it a little bit differently. I think that the Democrats, who are the majority in power in the legislature, totally screwed up the Department of Education issue with the superintendent. It created this backlash of parents and teachers that really, you don't get the voters irritated right before the election and not expect a bit of a backlash. And I think that the backlash happened, and it can be remedied, it can be fixed by the general election. But I think part of it was what happened with education, and that this circus that went on over the superintendent just is not good for business.
I mean, and also throw in the medical marijuana issue. The people who voted, they wanted an action. They came up with really nothing. Again, putting it back on the people, I think, is going to be even worse for them. But that's probably because those three were the key players in all of that medical marijuana issue over the last 6 months.
Well, one of the issues that emerged right after the primary was the story that we ran on KOAM about the Unity Pledge, and is it important, is it not important? Michael St. Nicholas, he did not sign the Democrat Unity Pledge, but yet he was at the Jefferson Jackson dinner, and he stood up with everybody else. He didn't read the pledge, but he was there. Does it really matter if you sign the Unity Pledge or not?
It matters if the Democrats think it matters. That's the reality. Is that,
will it hurt him though?
Well, that's the point. Is if the Democrats believe that that's important, which is we don't know that yet. Also, we don't know what the Republicans or anybody else in the middle who voted on either side, we don't know what they think yet. Okay. So it's going to be very interesting. These kinds of the Democrats never have unity. No offense to Democrats, they fight all the time. The Republicans fight too. They just do it quietly.
Right, but also
I don't know about that. I mean,
but both parties, when it comes to unity, it's a big deal. But it's only happening right now in this last couple of weeks. But maybe later on in the cycle, it might just go away.
Okay. Well, in D16 tonight, this past Wednesday, we had it was our first show post primary. The guests were Roy Respicio, Michael St. Nicholas, and Will Castro. And so at the end, I gave the senators the candidates an opportunity to ask their own question of their opponents. And one of the questions from Rory was, will you endorse me? And so Michael St. Nicholas was like, I'm not going to endorse any senatorial incumbents, and I'm not going to endorse any congressional incumbents and any mayoral incumbents. How do you think, I guess, people are going to react to that?
Well, I think my initial reaction was a bit of shock that he would do it right next to him and say it in his face, which is good. But all of the supporters of Rory now are going to say, hey, he's what he said on this program. And that is probably not going to help him very much with those supporters.
If I were a Democrat, I would heartily endorse Madeline Bradalio. Same if I were a Republican. I would heartily endorse, Felix Camacho. That's the game.
So we'll find out if
The impacts are going to how far-reaching it's going to be. Yeah, we probably won't know for a couple more weeks from now.
Do you think that was a smart move to say that?
I think that people need to do some reflection and be reminded that groups of people elect them. They don't elect themselves.
Okay.
Right.
Well, thank you guys so much.
All right.
We will see you again next week for another rehash of D16 headlines. But here's Jason with ways to interact with KUAM's D16 program. Jason.
At KUAM, we're transforming the way that you watch TV, and this election season, we've got a completely interactive way where you can directly interact with the candidates of Decision 2016 in real time. During each episode of D16 Tonight, watch live on KUAM TV8 or on our YouTube channel. Then, stream our special interactive view on Facebook Live and send each week's guest your comments, criticisms, and shout-outs by chatting with them live alongside other passionate KUAM fans. Plus, you can let our guests know how much you approve or dislike of their thoughts on island issues and their plans for Guam by tapping any of the reaction emoji. Like, love, anger, LOL, or surprise, and send your sentiment. The candidates are listening, so tap, 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 and hold your public servants accountable.
We will each have
There's
a
more ways
minute
to experience
respond
Decision
to
2016
questions
with
that are
KUAM.
So we'll